late diagnosed. Oh my God, like, get over. Take 100. I wanted to document my journey into getting a late diagnosis of autism. And if somebody would have told me, even just a couple of years ago, that this would be the case, I would have confidently told them that I don't think that they're correct. But I'm going to go backwards through my journey. I was diagnosed on the 29th, yep, a leap year. So my son laughed at me and said, I'm only autistic once every 4 years, which I found hilarious. And people are just making jokes at my expense, but I'm finding it quite funny because the people close to me have been very supportive on the journey. Anyway, I digress. I got diagnosed on the 29th of February this year, and even though I'd been down the rabbit hole for a good few years researching and making sure crystal clear that it makes sense, and it really did make sense. Like, I've had depression, I've had anxiety, but nothing quite made sense like this once I understood it well, because I didn't understand it well at one point, hence why I rejected the idea at first. And even when she said, I have enough information to confirm that you are autistic, and she even knew, because I mentioned that I have slow processing and it takes me a little bit of time to just kind of, for the information to really hit and saturate and penetrate and for me to understand it. She went back through why she believes I'm autistic and all the areas and the profile of autism, how I meet the criteria. And even when she did that, there was still a part of me that I've now reflected on since in one of my journaling books as to what was going on, but I was still shocked. I was still shocked. It was, a part of me was wondering whether it was imposter syndrome. Did I feel like I would be accepted into this community of people? Did I feel like I fully belonged in this community of people? But about maybe 24 hours to 48 hours later, I was beginning to accept that she was right. And the weirdest thing happened. My cat wants to say hello. The weirdest thing happened. I've always had issues with my memory, but I began to unlock memory after memory. And there was just also confirming, like, oh, I'm just like seeing them through this new, clear, unblurred lens with a new level of understanding, not only about the situation, but about myself. And that was quite enlightening. And it was also helping me accept my diagnosis at such a late age. And how my presentation is quite a lot different than the average person's, but that doesn't make it invalid. And it was the kind of accepting that. And there was also an element of shock that somebody, for once, did not make me climb another mountain just to prove myself, which I have spent my whole life doing. I felt like everything has been an uphill battle. Everything. That it's always never as straightforward as it should be, or never as straightforward as I saw it for other people. So there was a part of me expecting maybe, but not necessarily consciously, that this would be potentially another battle to contend with. But it wasn't. She was really lovely. I was so nervous. I got so ill on the run up to it. I will input pictures. But my face swelled up. You can still see that I've got some like lumps here and here. But my whole face just broke out in hives and my whole face was just swollen on one side. And my supervisor said to me that I have a very physical reaction to my emotions. And again, I began to unlock memories of what's happened to me upon now what I see as burnout and not having the capacity to deal with the situation, but kind of not knowing why I didn't have the capacity. And on the run up to my diagnosis, I got really, really sick. And then upon entering my assessment, I told her that I was really feeling unwell and I was really nervous, and she put my mind at ease and she really listened to me. And after hearing all of my stories, my endless amount of stories, and me divulging into the depths of why I've answered each question the way that I had and whatever. She was so sure. She was like, yep, there is enough information. You definitely fit on that autistic spectrum. And I've never had something as clarifying and as crystal clear in my life as that. And again, I think that's a journey of itself and probably a video of its own, but I don't want to be that person. And again, I already know that I'm doing it right now. I'm beginning to start masking because I know it doesn't make people feel comfortable when I mention it. But as a brown woman, as a woman of colour, as a minority, I never wanted to give a reason to people to dislike me. And I saw very young, if I stepped out of line in any way, if I had a tantrum, which I obviously wouldn't do, I didn't do. If I struggled with something, if I in any way stepped out of line, it was immediately a reason to dislike me and tie that to my race. So I learnt young. I learnt young that I could not be a kid in the same way that other people could be a kid. I could not navigate myself or my feelings in the same way that other people could navigate them. And that's sad. And it's very real. And I know that other people of colour and other people who are struggling with something on their own will understand well. But I'm now surrounded by amazing people, and I think that makes a difference in me being safe enough to even explore the idea that I could possibly be autistic. Anyway, you might ask me, how? How, if you've never seen it before, you never thought it was possible before, did you see it now? Many reasons. The number one reason being that my son, upon a meeting with both speech and language therapists, the deputy head, educational psychologist, so he has a developmental language disorder, and they think he has suspected dyslexia as well. But upon the meeting of getting his EHCP, they was like, we think that he is autistic. And I was like, okay, why? And they was like, because of this, this, and this. So when they began to explain why they think he's autistic, I was like, why would that make him autistic? Which is so funny on reflection. It's not funny, haha, but it's like funny, like, how could I have not seen that? Because I'd actually been working with autistic females and how they present drastically different. And they said that his presentation seems more female in the sense of he's very sociable. He can look you in the face, but he actually isn't looking you in the eye, but they didn't necessarily know that. I reflected on that with him later. But he does these things, like he has a very, strong, like he's got very strong sensory profile. He stims, but he stims lower level, like more internally. He does a little bit of rocking, but it's more like fidgeting or like moving his fingers or like doing this, what I'm literally doing right now, biting, pulling, things that when I've asked him now later why he did them, it was to regulate himself, and he quite enjoys it, and so do I, and I'd never noticed that about myself. So a few of the things that he was saying, I was like, yeah, but what's wrong with that? Which is an issue in itself, isn't it? That is a question, because there's nothing wrong with being autistic, and there's nothing wrong with an autistic's way of doing it. It's just that we are autistic in a neurotypical world that is disabling in itself. So I was like, okay, listen, I know that right now I have an emotional reaction that you can't see. I just need to go away and research what it is that you're saying to me. So I did. And I never left. I dug down the rabbit hole and I found article after article, research after research, case study of people who are actually autistic telling you, in particular female people, or minority people, telling you why their presentation looks different and what it looks like and how it feels. And it all began to slot into place. Yes, for my son, which we were on the journey, for him, but for myself too. And I thought, can I truly take care of him properly if I am not, one, acknowledging that I think that I could potentially be the person to pass this on to him? And how do I take care of him if I'm not willing to take care of myself? And I had to put my big girl pants on and go to the doctors and say, this is what I found, with a caseload. I literally have this file, actually I'll show you, of evidence. So this is actually a book that I've created. It's a journal unmasking book, but if you can see, it's like tons and tons of paper. In fact, I will insert some of the things that I found out. I did assessment after assessment. I did quiz after quiz. I think that anybody who is either self-diagnosed or late diagnosed does this, and this is the reason why it's so valid, because self-diagnosis, because most people don't just go, oh, I did a couple of those things and that's nice and now I am labelling myself as that. It's normally extensive research, clarity, it's moment after moment of realisation, epiphany after epiphany, and a sense of sadness that you wasn't able to care or see yourself quite as clearly as you do now, but also a moment of gratitude and self-compassion for seeing yourself clearly now, where you're grateful that you live in a time, well, I certainly am, where I live in a time where I have been able to identify myself due to the sheer amount of knowledge and insight that is out there. And once upon a time that wasn't true. I'm not mad at anybody for not knowing. Like my mum and dad, they really was great and they did the best that they could do. They didn't know what we now know. And my mum, she also sees traits in herself, and again that's no surprise because we know that it genetically runs, even though once upon a time I was told that that isn't the case off a doctor. And again, there's so many, unfortunately, professionals out there who just don't know enough about it, because my son could have flagged up years ago when he was getting his developmental language disorder diagnosis, but he didn't. But it's been a sad journey. It's been a sad journey of extreme highs and extreme lows, where I just want not only my son, but my daughter's life to improve, the quality of their life to improve, and the quality of mine to improve by knowing what it is that's going on for us better. And that's been an eye-opener. Anyway, fast forward. Upon diagnosis, like I said, it was shock. It was shock. It was all the things that I said a moment ago, and it needed some time to be processed. So I got diagnosed on the Thursday, and it wasn't until weekend that all these memories were slotting down and I was just having epiphany after epiphany, and there was some level of acceptance and complete certainty. Yes, I am 100% without any shadow of a doubt in my mind, knowing that I know 100% of my experiences and how that's been and how that looks and how that feels to me, that I am, but also in alignment with a professional's opinion. And then me and my husband was talking about how it isn't a bad thing. In fact, he said it's partially, part of the reasons why he loves me and my quirkiness and my personality. And I wanted my kids to know that, because I believe they are both neurodivergent, that it doesn't mean that there won't be difficulties attached to having a diagnosis, but that it's not all bad. In fact, there can be great strengths attached to it. I know for me and my children in particular, which we're very fortunate, because I know it isn't true for everybody, but there are some great strengths attached to it, and I wanted it to be a celebration. So me, my husband and my children had like a celebration with a cake where we was marking the landmark of me at the age of 33 being diagnosed with autism, despite all the odds of being a triple minority and all the trauma that I'd experienced, and I'd healed so that I could see that this wasn't just that, but there was some trauma 100% compounded as a result of being autistic, and that I'm in a time where that has been possible for me, and how I'm embracing myself and I'm caring for myself and I'm giving myself the grace, and I'm going along this journey in a way where I'm taking off the pressure. I'm taking off the pressure that I would usually put on myself. I'm beginning to notice things where I might be masking, and that it's okay to navigate that at the pace that I need to navigate that. And I will be putting out more content as I discover it along the way and at the pace that I'm capable of doing, because I have definitely a fluctuating capacity, which I know is very common amongst the autistic and ADHD community too, and that's okay. That I don't have to keep putting this face on that I am thriving all the time, because that's actually not helpful, and it doesn't help me connect, and it doesn't help people see or understand me. So I have to be able to put that version of me forward and communicate it in a way that I can, so that I can be met in the way that I need to be met, in the way that everybody needs to be met. Anyway, I hope this has been insightful, and I will be putting out more content soon. Bye.